can work through these calculations of measures of central tendency and dispersion much faster than doing them by hand. So what I'd like to do is show you how to use your calculator with this last data set that we worked with to get those measures of central tendency. So our data set consisted of the numbers 2, 5, 15, 32, and 10. So the idea is to put the data into the calculator. And the way I do that is by mashing the stat key, which brings up a list editor. And so choice number 1 is edit. And my screen will show me what kind of looks like a spreadsheet. And I see numbers in my list. And across the top I see list 1, list 2, list 3, and then there are more to the right. But I don't want these lists to have anything in them. I want them to be empty. And the fast way to clear a list, in case you happen to have some data in your list, in your calculator, is to move the cursor up to the name of the list. So I use my up arrow and I landed on L2, and I'm going to mash the clear key. And it looks like nothing happens until I touch the down arrow key, and then suddenly everything in that list disappeared. So I'm going to do the same thing to clear list number 1. I'm going to toggle to the left to get into the list, and then up to land on its title. Then I mash the clear key, then the down arrow key, and everything has disappeared. And what I want to do is put my data into list number 1. So my cursor is waiting for me to do that. It's right there for the first entry of list number 1. And I'm going to put 2, enter, 5, enter, 15, enter, 32, enter, 10, enter. So my list is here, and if I had made a mistake, like if I had punched in a 12 for that last entry instead of a 10, I would just move with my cursor back to where my mistake was and just retype it and hit enter. Okay, so my data is going to stay in that list until I come in and clear that list at some other future time. But I need to remember that the data is in list number 1, and I want the calculator to crunch some statistics for me. So I go back to my stat key, mash that, and instead of the edit menu, I'm going to toggle to the right to calc. So I use my right arrow, and I get a whole new set of options. And the very first one on the list is one variable statistics. It's highlighted, so I could just hit enter, or I could mash the number 1 key. And at my home screen, it says one variable statistics, and the cursor is waiting for me to tell it which list it should crunch. And that is list number 1 for me. That's where my data was. And if I look above the number 1 key, in tiny print, I see L1 there. And that's blue on my calculator. So I have to hit my second key and then the number 1 key to put L1 on my screen. So this is one variable statistics, list number 1. And if I hit enter, it'll tell me a lot of information about this data. For example, do you remember that X bar is the notation for the mean? And here's the mean, 12.8. When we calculated the standard deviation by hand, the mean was one of those values we needed. And that's exactly what we got, 12.8. Now, we were after standard deviation a while ago, and we found that number to be 11.82 when we rounded to 2 decimal points. So when I look at my screen, I see that same number, 11.819, sitting here, and it is resting at this value here, the S value, and you might think of S sub x as the standard deviation of those x values, the standard deviation of the data. Just match the S's, standard deviation. And so that's pretty neat. And if I think about if I look at, see a little down arrow here, and that means there's more information following if I just hit my down arrow key. And you might be interested in knowing that the median is also calculated here, and it is 10. And the calculator also gives me the smallest value, the minimum, and the largest value, the max. So I could use those 2 values to calculate the range. I could also use them to calculate the mid-range. You notice the little arrow is now pointing up, so if I use my up arrow key, I can scroll back through that information. And when I'm ready to clear my screen, well, I can just clear and it's all gone.